Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network, The World in Your Hands, and Cool Your Heels with Lillian Cauldwell on AMFM247.com. And this morning, our special guest is Dianne Gallagher, who is going to talk to us about financial awareness with kids. So, good morning, Dianne. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Lillian.
Well, I have to tell you, when I saw what you dealt with and who you worked through, I knew that this would be an ideal situation for everybody involved because finances haunt you from birth to death.
Absolutely.
And if you do not know how to get a handle on them or even exposed to them, it does more harm. So, with that introduction, could you please go ahead and tell everybody how you got involved and why you're targeting or focusing children?
Of course. This is one of those topic areas that we tend to shy away from as parents. We spend a lot of time helping our kids with their homework. Think about all the spelling tests and flashcards, and we tend to not talk about money. It seems that is a little too personal or really off limits. And what we've done is really taken a look at how we can help parents walk through this process with their children at an early age so they end up to be financially competent, confident as they get into high school, off to college, and into the workforce. Because it is so important to, as you mentioned earlier, a bad decision early on can really have reverberations. So what we've done at American Century Investments is created a book called Raising Financially Aware Kids, and it really covers that content from toddlers to teens to helping kids make good decisions or at least be aware of the decisions they're making when it comes to money. More parents in the U.S. worry about having enough money to pay for their kids' education than anyone else has other financial worries, even ahead of retirement. So when you think about one of the biggest issues we have right now are individuals who are saving for their own retirement and their kids' college education at the same time. And what happens to that kid who has to take a tremendous amount of debt of going to college, and now what they're living with is this crushing student loan debt when they should be starting their careers, buying their first home, starting their own, saving for their own retirement. So it is really important to get started as early as possible. And we actually know, studies have shown that kids by the age of 4 understand that idea of bartering, that you have to pay to get something in return. So it really is something that we can start very, very early with our children.
I have a tendency to agree. I have 3 grandchildren, 2, one that is identical twins, and they're going to be 12 in November, and then I have a 5-year-old. And I have found that all 3 are very aware of money, and they're being taught that if you want to go somewhere, you need to pay for it. So they set up a big jar on the table, and not so much the 5-year-old, but the others, whenever they have spare change, they keep on throwing it into this big jar. And when they have enough, then they supplement it with money they've laid away, and they go. And I think that it's a great lesson to teach at any age.
Right. There are really kind of a few overarching ideas that we talk about, and you touched on one right now, is this whole idea of values and money. And it's really helping kids understand there may or may not be a right or wrong answer there, but they understand that idea of what I value and what I'm willing to sacrifice for. And exactly to your point about saving for a specific thing or experience does matter. And so you're really having those discussions with kids early on about the difference between a need and a want. So if you think about teenagers or kids, they need shoes. They want a performance sneaker that's named after an athlete. So it's having that discussion about, I'm willing as a parent to say, I absolutely am covering all your needs. When we get into the area of wants, you're going to have to kick in a little bit. Of course, you don't want to deny your kids, gifts for birthdays or whatever, but just making sure that they have some appreciation for what is something that is required for them to be healthy and happy versus something that would just be nice to have. And I think that's a one element that we need to be really careful with our kids, of having that discussion about values and money. Even if you look at today, if you look at teenagers today, for example, they view food and going out to eat as an entertainment choice. So teens today spend 20% more on eating out than teens 15 years ago did, because that's viewed as something they really value, which was less valuable, for example, to me when I was growing up. To me, entertainment was getting the treat of going to a movie. But today, it's viewed as something as going out to eat. So it's just a little distinction in terms of how we talk to our kids about what they value and what they're willing to spend to their hard-earned money on. So it's a really important point that you made about making sure that kids really have a part of that process, saving for something and going through establishing what their financial goals are. And that really does speak to the idea of earning money as well, and then stepping through saving and investing, budgeting and borrowing, and also giving back, which is an important part of any discussion around finances.
I think so. I know that when my son was growing up, I started him off around 3, and we were in the drugstore, and I'll forget it. And I said, this is your choice. You can either buy some candy or you can buy a stuffed animal, but you cannot buy both because I don't have enough to pay for both. And
right.
the guy behind me was shocked. He said, how can you do that to a child? And I said, think about it. I said, you're on the corner and you look into your wallet, and for whatever the reason, you only have $5. Now you have to get back home, so you have to save money for the tokens to get back home and possibly buy, because we're talking the 50s at this point, and buy a train ticket, or you have to make the decision you're going to go out and buy a cup of coffee and maybe a Danish, or maybe you want to take a cab to the train station because your feet are tired. I said, you have learned how to make choices, and whatever that choice was chosen by you, you followed it down to its logical conclusion. And I said, this is what I'm trying to get my son to understand. Right. I don't expect him to pick the teddy bear. I expect him to pick the candy for instant gratification.
Right, right.
But the thing of the matter is, it's his choice.
Right.
And my son turns around, he says, what it really means, sir, is that I can't blame her. Which, the guy kind of looked at both of us, but my son was very sophisticated and gifted and talented, so even at 3, he acted more like he was 8 or 9, and he was tall enough to pull it off too. But the thing of the matter is that a child can understand if you put it, and I'm not saying talking down to them, because even my 5-year-old grandson knows when someone's talking down to him or being patronizing, and he can't stand it.
Mm-hmm.
And he lets you know. So when he goes out with me and my husband, his one set of grandparents, he knows we're not going to float $100 bills around him the way his other grandparents do. And that when he comes out, he has to make some hard decisions. And I have to tell you, he does think about it. He'll take 5-10 minutes before he finally tells you what he wants, which is what his father did. His father spent a good 15 minutes deciding it. And he looked at me and said, I'll have the candy bar. I got enough stuffed animals at home. I mean, come on, I knew what he was doing, but the fact of the matter was he understood that I was offering him a choice, and whatever choice he made, he better stand by. That's all. And I think kids today need to have that type of discipline.
Oh, absolutely. And it could also come from the concept of learning about earning money. And one of the big debates that parents have, and I can tell you with my kids when they were little, I wasn't always consistent about it, is the concept of an allowance. So, there are a couple of schools of thought around allowance, and one being that kids need to complete a chore chart or certain expectations, certain things they have to do, and if they do all these things, they will get paid on Friday. Where there's another school of thought that is they just get an allowance or a payment on Friday, and they can make decisions about that. And the average kind of allowance for a kid under 12 in the U.S. today is $6 a week. Age 13 to 17 is $15 a week. So the only thing that we would caution about is whichever kind of way works in your family and in your household, just be consistent. So if a son or daughter has to do some things to get the full allowance, they have to do those things to get the allowance. Same thing if you just to say they're going to get paid every week, and emptying the dishwasher, making their bed, letting the dog out is just part of being part of the household, and they'll get paid regardless. Make sure that you do that and you pay them at every week that they're expected, and make sure that they're saving it appropriately. They have their buckets of save, spend, give. But the really important thing is to be consistent. And I think that's where we as parents sometimes kind of fall out of that habit, and then we're basically not following through on kind of our end of the bargain, but just make sure that we're consistent with that, so our kids know what the expectations are once they go ahead and have money of their own. And whether that goes into part-time jobs as they get into high school, babysitting, mowing lawns, whatever that works out, that they're very diligent about the decisions you make, as you were talking about earlier, that they make choices about what they do with that money. But knowing saving or investing a piece of that is non-negotiable. It automatically goes in their accounts, and that's something that can continue with gifts from grandparents, aunts, and uncles. When there's that point where your kid doesn't need any more toys, when grandma or grandpa send money for a gift, it goes into their college savings account. They don't need another toy. So it's about just being diligent around what to do when they get money in their possession.
I think that's good, because I know that there are a lot of kids who don't save. I don't think their parents ever introduced them to the idea that they need to put money aside for a rainy day, if nothing else. I know that when my son wanted to go overseas with the American Field Service, we bluntly told him, you have to pay half. We're not going to shell out that kind of money. We agree with you that it'd be good for you to go, but we also think that you should take some responsibility for something that you really want to go to. And he did. And folks, you have to understand, my kid was mentally lazy, so that he would always try to find an easy way out. It's called avoidance, procrastination, however you want to call it. But we found that when he really found something that was very important to him, he would buckle down and do it. And parents may walk into that with their kids. Because kids of today are very much like their parents. They want to take shortcuts. Incidentally, at what age should you start introducing your child to writing checks, and more importantly, the concept of credit?
Yeah, you can start in middle school and in high school when your kid gets whether again babysitting, mowing lawn, whatever that is, to make sure that they have that account and show them, take them to the bank, even though they will probably end up doing everything mobile or online from a practical perspective. Show your teenager, middle school teenager, early teens, take them to the bank, open their account if they don't already have them, and watch them write a check, watch them balance their checkbook. That is still, again, as they get older, they're not going to do it by paper. They will do it on their phones, and that's fine, but it's the discipline that they have to know how to do it and fall into the habit of doing it. So they can do it with, paper and pen right now. They can do it mobile going forward, but they need to make sure that they know how to do that process. And when we get into the idea of credit, here is the big conundrum that we have to talk about with our kids, is that they need credit. They need to establish good credit as they get into adulthood. But they also need to watch that they don't get into trouble with credit. So especially as for a kid who's going off to college, especially if they're going away, they're going to need a credit card because they just need they need access to be able to buy things, food, they need to books, etc., clothes, whatever they need as they go away. So what's really important is to decide thoughtfully what credit card you want, whether that's through, there's a particular reward program, whether it's an airline because the student lives really far away and they're going to have to travel. They travel back and forth to school, whatever that is, that they use that credit card, they pay it in full every single month, so they don't carry on with any late fees. They don't carry the balance, so they establish that good credit, which they're going to need when they ultimately want to buy a home. So it's really important to kind of establish that right off the bat. And you can even talk in terms of what they know. A credit report is like their report card. Their FICO score is like their grade point average. That's everything that kids know. That's their life. And I think what's important that you can do, again, you can do it on a mobile app. You can do it online. You can also use a piece of paper and a pencil, that they get into the habit of a budget, especially as they're teens, and it's essential when they go to college that they know what's going in their accounts and what's going out of their accounts every week, every month, whatever time period works. Because what you want to make sure that your kid is able to stay ahead of that and be aware of what we talked about earlier, the choices that they're making. Because that whole borrowing element is really going to come in to play as they're going off to college, and how important that discussion around student loans, paying for college, really comes to the fore.
And you should know, folks, that as high school kids, whatever your son or daughter earns goes right as part of your income, which will raise your income quite a bit. So make sure that when you fill out the forms to get these loans and everything, that your kid is all paid up, because whatever outstanding debt your child under the age of 18 is holding becomes your debt as well, and it will possibly deny you that loan.
What's important about, as we talk about just college, I just want to kind of touch on that a little bit, is how important it is to have a 529 account to save for your kids to go to college. A 529 account is a parental asset, not an asset of your child, of your student. So if you start a 529 account for a young child and you put regular investments in there, or you use gifts from family members, even some of their earnings, and use that to fund that account, when it does come time to apply for financial aid or student loans, that's considered a parental asset, not a student asset. So the multiplier is lower. But what's also helpful about a 529 account is that, if you have 2 or 3 kids and one of your kids, they all have a 529 account, and one decides not to go to college, that money can be transferred to another beneficiary. So that is, because parents say, okay, I'm starting a 529 account for a 6-month-old that I have no idea what he or she will do. That's one benefit, as well as that it can be transferred to another beneficiary. And when your kids are at that point of looking at college, the most important website that people can take a look at is collegescholarships.org. Take a look at what's available. And a student does not need a perfect score on the ACT nor a 4-point grade point average to get scholarship money. We can look at activities they're involved in, groups that parents are involved in, private scholarships that are available. There are a multitude of options. So I think sometimes parents kind of go, well, my kid won't get a scholarship because they're not a perfect student. There are plenty of scholarships that are available across the board. So take advantage of those scholarships, those grants that are available that don't require a payback. And then the other thing to just consider, and you talked about this about earnings, when you talk to kids, I think it's hard to talk to a 16-year-old to be very sure about what they want to be when they get out of school. But it is important to take that into consideration of having a discussion around if I don't know what I want to do, perhaps it's a good option to go to a community college for 2 years and take all of my required courses and give me a little more time to decide and then transfer into a university, or make sure that I'm going to a 4-year school that has a lot of options that isn't highly specialized if I don't know what I'm going to do. Because you could end up in a situation where kid says, I want to be an engineer. They go to a school that specializes in engineering and the sciences. They decide a semester and a half in, I hate math, I hate physics. And now they've got to transfer anyway because there isn't another option for them. So that is really important to take the college search process as broadly as you can and really look at those options. And when you're looking at costs, count transportation into your costs. I mean, it's tuition fees, but it's everything else. If you go to school in California, but you live in Virginia, you got to get across the country. So we need to make sure that we account for travel, for breaks, et cetera. So it's really important, again, if you get into that habit very early on of the budget and enumerating what you need, that just carries on to adulthood and just helps our kids make better decisions and more informed decisions about how they spend their money.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I see that parents should be aware of, card games, bridge, poker, gambling. Kids have a tendency to get drawn into them. And you're saying, why are you bringing up card games, Lillian? Because they take their money that's meant for something else and they play bridge with it. Or they play poker with it. Or they go to the local, what do they call? Every state pretty much has gambling casinos set up now where you can go over and play the slot games and stuff. And you really have to teach them that games of chance, games of risks are not a good way to earn money.
No, I mean, and I think that
and a lot of kids get sucked into that in school.
Well, I think it's just important to have a discussion of how they're looking at that. I mean, if they're looking at going out as an entertainment value versus they're counting on that money. Those are two completely different things, and it's why we have the conversation. You can have a conversation with kids about risk and reward exactly in that frame. So you have a kid who wants to play soccer, so they have to take the risk of trying out for the team. The reward being that they could make the team. There's also a risk that they won't. So they're kind of putting themselves out there, whether they're auditioning for the school play. Same thing. You're taking a risk by putting yourself out there. The reward is you could actually get a part and meet other people and have this experience. But again, the risk is you don't get that part. So it's the same thing when we talk about saving and investing. There is this trade-off on risk and reward. And what's important is we make those informed decisions and balance that. And that is something you can talk to kids about at a very early age because they know, they already know they face that every day. They face that every day, whether they're doing the spelling bee at school, whether they're taking a test, there are risks and rewards in everything that they do in the course of their day. So that's another lesson that we can talk to our kids about. And
I think another lesson also needs to be taught is insurance. Because kids are going to be, if they take an apartment off campus, then they're going to have renter's insurance or maybe homeowner insurance. And if they have their own car, they're going to have to pay for car insurance. And they really should understand how the insurance works because they will get exposed to it before they graduate from school, especially if they're in there for a master's.
Yeah, and it's important too when you raise a point about car insurance with a teenager. That's one thing that parents can do as well. If you have a kid who needs wants to get a car when they get their driver's license, which is great. But then you have that discussion about what they will pay for. So to add you onto my insurance, the bill goes up by X. You can cover that, or you cover gas, or I'll do gas, you do insurance, however that works. But it's important for them to have some skin in the game to that end on what that costs. And when you talk about going away to college, again, if they're going to live off campus and they need, renter's insurance on an apartment, that needs to go into that calculation as well. It's so important to do that. But one of the examples we've heard from parents that they do, which I think is interesting, is that their kids either when they're home in the summers for college or a new graduate and they come home for a little bit so they can save a little, is, okay, that's great, but you're going to cover one bill. So the water bill is going to go up when you come home because you have another person taking a shower. You're going to cover the water bill for the summer while you're home, or at least have exposure to that, because I think that's also, we talk about parents not talking about money a long time, is they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what things cost. And a great example that I think is helpful to that end is actually shopping for a car. So, as an adult, as a parent, you're going to buy a new car. Take your kids with you. I know it sounds like torture, but if you bring kids with you, I used to love shopping for a car when my dad got a new car, however many years between cars. But then they start to see you get back to that needs wants discussion. So you say, I buy a car every 10 years. And all the things that were extras when I bought my last car 10 years ago are now standard today in a new car because of technology and advancements. But it's important to have that discussion where you say to a kid, okay, so you want the leather seats and the navigation package. Is it worth this much more to you? And then when they realize that trade-off, they're like, I can live without it. So it is. Car shopping is in buying car insurance and all that are important opportunities or teachable moments to talk to kids.
What else do parents tell you about when it comes to teaching their kids about money? What is the biggest problem that parents see when they try to impress upon their kids how important it is to handle money instead of the money handling them?
Yeah, I think the thing we hear a lot is that importance of saving and investing and overcoming that idea of needs and wants, which you can do in very small ways. But when there is a point where your kid starts to realize things that they would really like to have, that they have some skin in the game. And that's probably the biggest thing we hear from parents is, I want this video game, where parents say, okay, that's great. Let's see how you're doing toward that. Let's see what you've saved in your piggy bank or what's in your account, and let's see how far you are. And you kind of set a goal toward that. I think that's probably the biggest thing we hear from parents. And then as the kids get older, the biggest kind of weight on parents is paying for college. And what we say there is, especially if you're saving for retirement and college at the same time, you can't take a loan to cover your retirement. So don't sacrifice your own retirement for your kids' tuition. Whether that's a budget, here's what we set, here's what I've saved, this is what I can cover for you to go to college. Beyond that, you're going to have to take a loan or use your own personal savings, whatever. But that's one of, I think, the weights that happen in a lot of households is that saving for college and retirement at the same time.
It's difficult, and the kids also, I don't want to scare them, but the thing of the matter is that $1 million in the 21st century doesn't hold the same value that $1 million had in the 20th or the 19th century. And they have to realize that there are going to be health costs. And of course, there are going to be health costs when you go through college, too. But when they start putting away, they should start putting away their money for retirement and long life somewhere in their teens. My husband's father was a CPA, and that's what he taught my husband. So we're lucky, we're one of the few baby boomers who actually did it right. But there are a lot of people out there that don't understand that you really need to start saving as soon as you possibly can.
Right. And it's really important too for someone coming out of college. I mean, certainly your first job, enroll in that employer-sponsored retirement plan, whether that's a 401k plan, a 403b plan, whatever is available. Take advantage of that to the full extent with your first paycheck, and you'll never fall out of the habit of saving. And, as we talk with kids, about how important it is to save and invest for the future, and that they understand that difference between saving as well, that this is money that I could have access to versus investing for the long term, and that they also save an element for giving back. That we teach our kids that there you have some some responsibility on how you want to give back or how you want to contribute, and you can start that as early. And it's something I've done with my kids for years. Is there's a point where they don't need any more toys; they really just want a birthday party to have their friends over. So you say, everyone bring 2 canned goods, 2 cans of food, or bring 2 boxes of your favorite cereal, and we will take them to a food pantry, or bring a package of diapers for a diaper bank, or socks, or mittens, or a hat, gloves, etc., and we'll take them to a shelter. So that's just another exercise that you can do with kids when they're little to have that help instill that idea of appreciation and value.
In fact, to build on that, you can have them take their toys over to the place and actually give it to them, because that's what giving back really is. It doesn't always have to be in coins and in dollar bills.
Exactly.
And it's a very good lesson to teach. My grandkids have been taught that. Their parents are in good professions. They have a very good lifestyle. And they make sure that the kids give back every year by rooting through their toy closet or their clothes closet or whatever, to make sure that they understand how lucky they are, and that there are always people who are going to need some of their luck as well, and to go and do it. And I think it's a great lesson to start teaching children this, because they don't learn it all the time when they're growing up, because it's not, adults are very, I won't say ashamed. I mean, when they volunteer, they do volunteer, and we do have a wonderful volunteer system. But sometimes they miss that part of the lesson. And they need to learn it.
Yeah.
So when you set up everything for the financial awareness, is it like a booklet, or do you hand out papers, or what?
Yeah, so anyone can visit AmericanCentury.com/kids and download a copy of the book.
That is awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Dianne, that we haven't covered?
No, I think it's really just an important lesson for no matter how old your kids are, if they're very young or if they're middle school, teenage, whatever it is. The best time to start when they're little. The second best time is to start right now. So visit the site and download a copy of the book and start helping your kids make those good decisions about their futures.
And if people wanted to contact you, do you have an email, or they find that on the website?
They can visit on the website. Yep.
Okay, terrific. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Dianne Gallagher about financial awareness for kids, teens, and older teens and adults. So please go over to the website. You can hear this interview all over again at amfm247.com every Tuesday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Also at https://passionateworldradionetwork.com, and click on Cool Your Heels or on Lillian Cauldwell, and you can hear it all over again. You can also click on the player and listen to our station, which is in the cloud, and it runs 24/7. You can find it on Facebook.com/Passionate World Radio, Twitter.com/PWR Talk, also on iTunes.com/Cool Your Heels, iHeartRadio, ALEXA. You can find it on that, as well as all the other smart speakers that are out there, plus various podcast directories on Google Plus and LinkedIn and many others. And before you go away, and stray, George Eliot had this to say in 1872, "One must be poor to know the luxury of giving." Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, stay tuned. We have more to come. Bye.